Welcome back. We're here to look ahead to Saturday's Premier League game between Man City and Watford. Barnes, two unbeaten sides, but City top of the table, 100% record, no goals conceded. It's looking really good for them.
It is looking good for them. They're still the team to beat at the start of this season. They've started magnificently well, 2 points clear at the top of the table already. You'd have to say their performance against Everton was probably the least dominant so far of their 3 games, but they still deserve to win, probably by the 2 goals as well. It's quite a comfortable victory in the end. Everton did have their moments. Lukaku clipped the bar, Barry had one cleared off the line, Lukaku had a goal disallowed, which was a minimal offside given. But at the same time, City, Howard was forced into a few really good saves. Howard was probably at fault for both goals, I'd say, definitely the first one, but perhaps could have done more for the second one as well. But City, they were knocking on the door quite a lot. Aguero didn't have his best game, but he always looked dangerous. Silva just ran the show, pulled the strings in the hole there. They've both started the season really well. It's just the whole team is playing really well now. You look back to last season when they didn't seem to be clicking. Their key players, the likes of Toure, Company, they weren't playing so well. But right now, they're all playing really well. And if they can maintain this start to the season, then they can build up a decent gap between them and the rest of the chasing pack. And they could go on a similar dominant season as Chelsea had last season because they've started that well.
Certainly the gap to Chelsea already 5 points. They're expected to be their main title rivals, and you mentioned Company there. I think that defensively is where City have really impressed me, because the last 2 seasons Company, he did so well his first few years in the Premier League, and then I think certainly been given a status as just one of the best defenders. But I think certainly last season especially, and the season before, I just don't think he was one of the best defenders. He made some errors. Certainly City weren't keeping enough clean sheets, which they're doing this season, and Mangalar's playing brilliantly as well. He looked really out of place last season in one of the a top team's defence. He looked certainly out of place, and Otamendi's come in and spent all that money on him to prize him away. He looked like he was going to United all summer, and now City have got him, but he'll really struggle to get into the team, I think, because you look at Kolarov as well. He was second choice Premier League left back behind Clichy last season. He's playing so well. Mangala's playing really well. Sanya, he's a very adapted right back, and that defence, Joe Hart's a good keeper as well. He looks so solid at the back there, and Otamendi might struggle to get in. And it's interesting the De Bruyne situation as well, because I think he could make a real difference instead of Navas on the right of that front 3 behind Aguero. But it looks like Bayern Munich are now in for De Bruyne, and I think Munich are offering Wolfsburg the chance to they've said, right, we'll agree to buy him, but the move won't go through until next summer, so you can keep De Bruyne for this season, and certainly that would be much more appealing to Wolfsburg if they can have De Bruyne for another season. And you wonder if Bayern might just pip them in that race because they haven't quite been able to get the deal done. And if they can't, you do wonder if Navas might, if he becomes the regular starter down the right, you think, is that enough him to be there for a title? The way he's played recently, and with the likes of Sterling, Silva, Aguero, it probably should be, but I think if they could get De Bruyne, it'd be huge.
Yeah, Navas had a decent game against Everton, gave their fullback Galloway a couple of problems, but as you say, I think De Bruyne is another step up from that if he performs as he did for Wolfsburg rather than he did for Chelsea. If they do get him, they're going to be such a formidable prospect, because they've already won 9 Premier League games in a row now. It's their Premier League record. It's their best run in the top flight since 1912. It's a 103-year record they've equalled there, and they'll certainly fancy their chances of breaking that, getting 10 in a row. Joe Hart said after the game that they want 9 in a row this season is what they're after. He doesn't care about last season's run, and he counts it as a 3-game winning streak now, which is probably the right attitude to have. But you can't argue that they've picked up where they left off last season. It's been a really good run for them, and they've got a decent run coming up. They've got a few games which should test them. The likes of Palace, West Ham, Tottenham should test them a bit, but they'll fancy their chances of winning all of them as well. So that run could keep on growing and growing. I think their first huge test of the season is away against Manchester United, which, as you know, Manchester derby is going to be a big game, and until then they'll look to keep up racking the wins, and this run could grow to the likes of 15-16 games.
I think it certainly could, and I think most will probably earmark this game down as just a home banker. But Watford come into this, they're still unbeaten, newly promoted side. They started the season really well with that 2-2 draw at Everton, and it certainly could have been, that could have easily been a win for them, that game at Everton. They played really well there, but since then still unbeaten with it, but 2 0-0 draws at home to West Brom and Southampton. And I think the worry is about the goals, because they scored so many last season, and not being able to score in either of those home ones is disappointing. But the Southampton game, there wasn't many chances at all in that game, was there, Sunday afternoon, and a really tight game, which Southampton are probably going to be like that on the road. They've got a very solid defence, what they did last season at least, Southampton, and Watford struggled to break them down, but I think they'll be pleased that they restricted Southampton to so few chances. And if anything, Watford did have the better chances, but it just looked like a 0-0 the whole way through, didn't it? And for it to finish 0-0, it's not a bad result against Southampton, but 2 games at home, no wins, slightly disappointing.
Yeah, 3 draws in a row is quite tough start to the season to decide whether it's a good one or a bad one. You'd have to say for a newly promoted side, it's a decent one, it's a solid one. They've got 3 points on the board. Not to lose in your first 3 games back in the Premier League is a good record. But as you say, that lack of goals that lack of goals so far will be a worry to them. Deeney and Ikalo, I'd still back them to get goals this season. I think they're good enough to succeed at this level. Ikalo's already got one, of course, this season, but they also drew a blank in the League Cup in midweek against Preston, only Premier League team to get knocked out so far. We're talking before Everton's game against Barnsley, of course, but that came away from home as well, and that's going to be the really key for them to improve their away performance, because last time in the Premier League they were dreadful away from home. It's what cost them a place in the league. I think they've only won 3 of the last 39 Premier League away games going back a few years now, so they need to improve that performance. And they made a decent start with that draw on the opening day, but if they can get anything out of this game, then it'd be a very good performance, and certainly their best result of the season so far.
Yeah, certainly they need to get that. They want to get that first win soon, but I think they'll obviously take a draw here against the league leaders. Did you see them getting anything out of it?
I don't. I think City are just in such good form, and Watford, they've established themselves already as a team that's tough to beat, but City in this form, I back them to beat anyone at home, and I can see this being quite comfortable, 3-4-0 I think.
Yeah, I don't know if it'll be quite that comfortable. I think Watford, 2 clean sheets they've had in the last 2 games. I think Quique Sanchez-Flores certainly, he's sort of identified that back line, wanting to keep some clean sheets. And I think Man City, because they're facing a newly promoted side, might just take their foot off the gas a little bit. So I'm going to go for a 2-0 wins, but even so, we're still picking Man City to win this one fairly comfortably. Thanks for joining us.